There we are. Hi, everybody. Thank you for joining us today on my Live Your Greater Story Summit. And we have our guest, Jenny Simmons. So before I introduce Jenny to you, I just want to begin the summit today with a quote from Barry Lopez from his story, Crow and Weasel. I really love this. Okay, it says, and I'm reading this to you now from Barry Lopez, Crow and Weasel. Remember only this one thing, said Badger. The stories people tell have a way of taking care of them. If stories come to you, care for them. And learn to give them away where they are needed. Sometimes a person needs a story more than food to stay alive. That is why we put these stories in each other's memories. This is how people care for themselves. And I love this quote so much because it kind of is the soul of what the summit is about, that we need one another's stories. It's food for our soul. And we put these memories into each other's stories because this is how we create community. This is how we take care of each other, by taking care of one another's stories. And I know that in the New Agey movement, story means something else to some people. And I hear a lot, don't tell the same old story, blah, 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 move on, forget your story, create your own life. And that's all good and true too in that context. But I'm talking about story in a very different context, in a very sacred context, the kind of story that we hope to share, that I hope to share on this summit, is the kind that creates human connection, the kind that allows all of us to feel vulnerable and truthful and be seen and be heard. And there's something very healing just in being vulnerable with who we are. So I really appreciate all my guests for being on the show, for having the courage to be vulnerable with their stories, because in being vulnerable, they are also empowering you and inviting you to just do the same. We are acknowledging the wisdom inherent in every person's life, and that wisdom is often shared through story. So I am not someone who would tell you to stop telling your story. I'm saying make it great, share it, and empower each other to share. And before I go on, I just want to say something about this summit. This summit is kind of like the anti-summit summit. Because I know that other summits have like a series of speakers around the same topic, and they share what they do, and then they sell you something, and then they are on at a certain hour every day. And instead of allowing other people to define for me what a summit is, I choose to just go with what feels right for me. Do one interview a week because that's what feels right. And instead of me choosing who shows up, I create the space and I allow people who feel ready to contact me and show up and say, hey, I have a story. And I feel that in that way, it's really more organic and more authentic, and allows the right people to show up in the right time, and allows the right people to hear one another's story, to be there for one another's story. So I really appreciate how that flow just works. I just allow things to flow. And without any further ado, I'd like to introduce you all to today's amazing guest, Jenny Simmons. And Jenny has been to so many cool places and actually live in other places, and she will tell you more about that. And Jenny is somebody who has such a amazing relationship with animals, which she will tell you more about. And being a multi-talented person, she's also good about helping people clear space, their clutter, so that they become more spacious within. So clearing emotional space as well as actual physical space around people. And I think that she also has another wonderful project that she will tell you about later called Legal Shield, that is helping people to feel that you are protected, because legal protection should not mean having to pay a lawyer so much money every time. So she'll tell you more about it. I mean, how lucky are we to have Jenny as our guest today, who has so many talents to share. So without any further ado, Jenny, tell us a little bit about yourself. And I love to hear about all the places you live, but also the other day you share with me something about how you're able to connect with people and understand them, even if you didn't understand the language. And that's so fascinating to me.
Yes. Well, thank you, Jade, for inviting me onto the summit. This is my first summit, so we are having some problems with some freezing. You tend to freeze, so if I sound staccato, that may be happening. But getting back to the story, we spend how many billions of dollars entertaining ourselves with stories, TV, movies, books. So stories really, I think, is like a human need. And I think with stories as well, when we read a story, we can connect and we can feel ourselves not so apart. There's so many books that hit people at certain times, whether it's when you're a teenager and you read Catcher in the Rye and you can understand feeling alienated and odd in your body, or if you've lost somebody, or you've come to a place where you don't know where your life is, and then you read Eat, Pray, that book by Elizabeth, whatever her name was.
Yes, Eat, Pray, Love.
What we do is it allows us also to fully feel our emotions. So, and I think that's who I am. I don't. It's not easy being somebody who's very sensitive to my environment, to my people, to my animals, to what goes on in the world. I am very sensitive to it, and it's a strength for sure. And it's a strength in what I work with. And I think I was always sensitive, and then I was just so very lucky when I was a child. My father was an engineer, and we ended up going overseas. And I lived in Mallorca, Spain, and then I lived in Biskra, Algeria, which is way down in the desert. Lived in Milan, Italy, and Feisenau by Salzburg, Austria, and London, England, and different parts of Germany, and so I got to really be with a lot of different people, and I like people, and so I like it. I like how people do things differently, and I like how if I'm in a mood, I can be in a mood that's I'm Italian today, and I feel like this, or I feel very like if I'm on task and things are going well, it's like I'm in Germany right now. Things are down to the minute. Everything's in its place. I love that efficiency. So with traveling around, there were many times when I didn't speak the language, but there is such a connection that you can have. You can have a conversation with people without really words. Words are just really symbols. And so it's just a way to convey an emotion or information. And, I actually, one of my jobs that I really, really loved was I helped to open up extended stays in Seattle during the 90s. And when everybody was coming in from all over. And there was a couple that came in, a mother and a daughter, actually. They came to visit the father, husband, who was from China, and they spoke no Chinese, no English, and I spoke no Chinese. And every day I would stop them, and they would point to where they were going, and I would wish them well, and they would wish me well. And you know, they had such a lovely time visiting with their loved one. And when they were leaving, they gave me a necklace, a jade necklace. And I was thinking about that. Yeah, they gave me a jade. It's like a little dragon. It's a beautiful little jade necklace that they gave to me because,
Wow.
you know, they're saying. And the really saddest part of this whole story was 2 weeks later, both the mother and daughter were killed in a car accident in China. And so I had to be there for the husband to help him get his things together and go back home. But it's sort of the thing that stays with me is that they had the most wonderful time here. They got to really connect and see a different country and see him really working hard, and they had that great moment of a family. And so I keep that. I always look at that little jade necklace that I have, and I just think. But I think I like to think that I gave something extra to those last 2 weeks that they would have together as a family. You know, my input was important, and I think that's important when we look at people and we're in their energy, to see the humanity, and even if people aren't expressing themselves well in English, and being Americans, and even with people that you're surrounded by who are other Americans, and they're not expressing themselves well, it's good to look for the energy underneath it, and you can see where their pain is.
Yes, it sounds like your sensitivity, your way of being empathic and intuitive and psychic about people allows you to have an even deeper connection that's beyond language, beyond culture, beyond ethnic boundaries, beyond all the superficial boundaries.
You know, I've used this. I don't know if you're freezing right now. Am I talking over you? I don't know.
Okay, I can hear you now.
But so what I do now is, so I was after doing that, I worked in medical offices with chiropractors, and I saw a lot of people in pain. And there was one of the chiropractors I worked with. He worked with women, especially, who were post-traumatic stress. So I remember a woman coming in, and she was a typical one. She would come in all bundled in a big coat and a hat, and she was like, just turn off the music. She was so overstimulated. She was almost, clinging to the walls. And I found it very difficult, but it was there that I learned to be in a space with people and know it wasn't about me. If they were angry with me or if they were sad with me, it wasn't about me. It was about their emotions, that was a really good lesson. So later on, I've done a lot of, I did 10 years of professional organizing. Mm-hmm. And my specialty ended up being working with widows and working with people who end of life, because I could handle their emotions and really hold the space for them because there are so many things to do at end of life. There's so much to do. So I think being in countries and not speaking languages, I learned to watch for cues, how people held themselves, what the tone of the voice was, how they would look if they were saying something, so you could see the incongruencies and understand when people were in trouble, when it was very emotional, and to be very sensitive with them, and when people really wanted help and how they could accept it. Because being vulnerable is very it's so hard. I mean, I hate to be vulnerable in front of people. I'm very good with being vulnerable, being the recipient of holding people who are vulnerable. But I myself, I think that's why I'm even gentler with them, because I know how difficult it is to say, I need help. And that allows me as well with the animals, because, man, you know, they can't speak to you, but they can really let you know, you know, and if you watch an animal, you can really get if they're doing well, if they're happy, if they need something. So it's just really being connected. It can be overpowering to live with myself. Sometimes if somebody's so emotional, it's very hard for me not to be affected later, because I've just stored all that that emotion, and I've kind of like held on to it. I'm not so good at letting it all the way go, but I will always stand for my clients, and my animals. You know, what's best for them, not what's best for me, I guess.
Yeah, it sounds like you really know how to hold space for others, rather than, you know, because there's this thought, I see this around all the time, Facebook postings about how to protect yourself, how to watch out for empaths, and how to watch out for this and that. And instead of becoming more available and becoming more spacious as people, it seems like something is feeding this notion into sensitive people that you need to protect. And if somebody is complaining too much, if it's chatty Cathy or whatever, I mean, somebody actually named all the different empaths, and I'm just like, oh my God, people, stay grounded, be spacious, be here for one another. And it sounds to me like you are someone who has that ability to just be spacious, be here for one another, hold space. And we're only human. We all have sadness. We all need a shoulder to cry on. And what a gift you are to all the people that you work with. I mean, what a gift it is to be able to just be with someone and have them hold space so that you can witness your own stuff and cry it out. I find that to be such a gift, because, you know, because I'm an energy healer myself, I go to many workshops and seminars and see many different people. Sometimes I find some of them to just be like, yeah, this, like, the whole thing. I mean, I believe it's good to have some kind of boundary, but I feel like some people just overdo it a little bit. It's like, yes. And they make this being sensitive, being intuitive, being empathic to be almost like an affliction of some sort when it's a gift. And a gift is something you give, whereas an affliction is something you suffer from. So it almost feels like they're still in that space of suffering from an affliction, or being able to use it as a gift. It sounds to me like you have naturally found your place in helping others and being that gift. How did that come about?
Well, you know, just I want to tag on to something that you mentioned, and you know, if you know they're doing all this protection, then they're not connecting. But I think people are afraid of being hooked in. So that's you have to be willing to be open and be connected.
I'm losing your voice. Is there any way you can get closer to the mic?
How's this? I'm closer now to my mic. Is that better?
Perfect. I can hear you better now. Yeah.
I think it's your bandwidth. Yeah, because you keep freezing on me. I'll be interested to see what the record looks like. But so I think the real gift is to know if we're all one, then we shouldn't be trying to deflect and cut ourselves off. However, we can choose not to follow their mood or their line. So how did it come about? I think, you know, my brother about 7 years ago was so very, very ill. He was actually dying, and it was really devastating for me. And he didn't die, but when I was there by his bedside, he said, "You know, Jenny, I was in so much pain. I was really ready to go." He goes, "But I thought, well, you know, Jenny will be all alone. I can't leave her." And I was like, "Yeah, that's right. You better not go." But then I thought, well, that's very selfish. That's very, very selfish. I should be able to let him choose the best way, you know, and so the universe, of course, said, okay, how do you learn to be able to be all right with being the last one left? And I ended up downsizing people into their assisted living, and I got to know one couple in particular, and he really was my gift. So my father worked in Algeria, North Africa. And when I went to help this couple downsize, the man, his name, I'll just say his first name. His name was Clint. He had been captured by the Germans in North Africa, and he had a book in his hand. And I said, I had a map on the cover, and I said, oh, my father, we lived in Algeria when I was 15. And he goes, that's when I was captured. So he connected to me. And in the getting rid of things so that they could go from a 2-bedroom house into a small apartment for assisted living, they had to let go of things. And I helped them pack, and we got let go. But then he started to tell me about being captured and being a prisoner of war. And I would ask him more, and his wife started to nudge me and say, ask him again, because he had never said anything about his time as a POW in the German camps. And so part of what he taught me was that I could facilitate somebody letting go of all of those pent-up emotions. I mean, they starved. He at one point, when towards the end, the Germans were moving all the prisoners, and they were on the long hikes, and some of them were just dropping dead. And this, as he was walking, this German woman came out, and she had a bowl of like cabbage soup, and she gave it to him. And he's just started to cry, and he was drinking it. You know, he said he ate it, and he said, and I thought I would never forget her for her kindness. And I said to him, you never did. You never forgot. So the thing he feared about forgetting about that, he never did. He always remembered it. And so in letting go, he just got lighter and happier, and which is odd to say, because then he got pancreatic cancer. And so when I came over, and they told me, his wife left the room, and I said to him, how are you with this? And he goes, no, I'm good. I've had a good life. I feel really good about this. I said, okay. So he was teaching me how somebody could go into death with no regrets. Like, yeah, I'm ready. This is time. Wow. And so with that, I was allowed, I was so privileged. I was allowed, not by his family, but by the universe. The night before he died, I was sitting there by his bedside, and I knew he was leaving his body and coming back. You know, I could see it. And I said, I know you're leaving. I know it. And he goes, yeah. And I said, what is it like? He goes, I don't think I'm supposed to tell you. No, you have to tell me.
What a cliffhanger.
You can't. Wait a minute. I helped you. And he said, all right. He goes, I just want to say, the ceiling has disappeared, and I can see the beams with the blue pencil mark from the carpenter pointing out where to cut the beams. And, you know, he goes, just, you know, everything is sort of dissolving away. And he kind of left again and then came back. And I said, when it's my time, will you come and meet me? And he said, his eyes really opened bright, big, and they were sparkly. And he said, where do you want to go? And it was at that moment that I stopped being afraid of death and stopped being afraid of my brother's death.
Wow.
Because I know that in this physical place, when we lose somebody, we miss them. We miss their companionship. We miss their physical presence in our lives. Leaving the shoes in front so we trip on them, or making the coffee in the morning, or, you know, that's what we miss. But their essence has gone to something that's so amazing. So that allowed me, when my brother, like 3 years ago, got head and throat cancer, and so and it got into his lymph system. So I flew down, and I was like, wow, you know, he was saying, well, you know, do you want the car? I really want to give this to my girlfriend. She's really helped me. And I was like, okay, you know, he goes, I don't have much, but he was trying to figure out his affairs. And I said, you know, Greg, as far as you want to go with your, you know, your medical help, the medicine, I support you. And if you don't want to go any further, I support you. Do not do anything for us. Do it for you. And I had a conversation with his girlfriend, and I said, we will miss him whether he dies in 2 months, 5 years, 20 years. And if we're the ones still here, we will miss him no less, no matter the amount of time we share. So we have to really have to honor him. And he was like, well, you know, I feel really, really good. I think I really believe in my doctors, and he is cancer-free. It got into his lymphs. He's fine. He's living a great life in LA. Yeah, he's fine.
Wow. How did that transition happen?
He believed in his doctors, and he says he feels like he's been reborn. He feels like it's a completely different life. And you know, I mean, yeah, they're planning on, he was declared cancer-free, and he's doing great. But now I'm doing great because I lived with that. Oh my God, he's going to, you know, he's going to die first.
Okay, I'm losing your voice.
Okay, sorry.
Okay, I hear you now. Okay.
I know, I'm going off. But so I think being able to be in that space for people going through, you know, great transitions. You know, I've dealt with widows who have to do all the paperwork for probate. Mm-hmm. I mean, it's so hard when you realize you don't know the password to somebody's computer. You know, all those things, all the funeral costs, the medical costs, the visa bills. There's so much stuff that when your partner dies, that if it's not set up correctly, you can be frozen out of your accounts. You can say, for example, if you have something with Comcast, if it was in his name, they may say, now you have to have a new contract with us, which will be at a higher rate. And it's a mess. And you're beaten over the head again and again, having to send out death certificates to people who don't care. That being able to be with people during that process and really helping them do what has to be done, yet grieve the way that they need to grieve, and sometimes they don't want to grieve at all. And so a lot of what I have to do is stop them sort of hard, so that they do have to grieve. They have to let that emotion out. It's just in the long run better. And I'm not afraid of them being angry or you know, the rage. You know, I've seen a lot of rage. And of course, you know, it's the soul being like ripped. You know, part of your soul is being ripped. So.
Wow, those are really amazing ideas that I have never thought about. That the everyday things we do, we take for granted, like we were saying about, you know, having a Comcast account and having, you know, we know about insurance and how it has to have somebody's name and this and that, because I used to work in the hospital, but the actual day-to-day stuff that is also a part of the death and dying. I mean,
Yes.
it's so amazing to have somebody like you taking care of it. I worked in the hospital before, and I know that what needs to take place in the hospital, the clinical aspects, the, you know, do not resuscitate and all that, you know, there's a very formal few steps to go through with the families. But it sounds to me like what you go through with them is the actual everyday things that we take for granted, that we don't think about till we have to.
Yeah, yeah, and but that's, you know, that's it's a real gift. You know, it's, so my tagline in my business is Clear Space, and my tagline is transforming chaos into tranquility. And so what I want to do with my clients, I feel like with the humans, I'm helping them step into a new label, and it may not be a label that they want. So for example, they were a wife and a mother, and now they're a widow. That's a new label. Or divorce, or people who have gotten you know, the medical, they've been told that they're terminal. Now they are in the process of dying, and it's helping them sort of transform and step into that life the easiest. Though that's not all I do, because
it sounds to me like it's a way of literally midwifing a new narrative in their lives.
Yeah,
so like
almost like a doula.
Huh?
Almost like I met another woman who was called a death doula, and I thought at one point that's what I did. I sat with a lot of different people. You know, Clint was the one, the most special, because we just connected so much. And I have a few things his family gave to me because they said, no, he would want you to have this. So, but you know, but I think when you look at you know, so I do pet sitting as well, and that's out of a joy of animals, and being able to not have to pay their vet bills. You know? But with them as well, you know, they're all so individual. Though I say there's 1,000 ways to be a dog, there's 1,000,000 times more ways to be a cat. That's for sure. But you know, you're also taking an animal that is also it's when their people leave, it's never optimal, no matter if they love you. Oh, it's Jenny. You know, like I have pets that I see again and again and again, and they like me. They really do. But I'm not their people. You know, they're still like, well, last time she left and they came back. That's good. So there's always something that wants me to go, and there's always something that you know, that enjoys me, but it's not quite right. It's a little
I'm losing your sound.
Can you hear me?
Oh, not yet.
Yeah. Okay. So yeah. So
I can hear you now. Yeah.
Yeah. I love I love the pets. I do. They're a very easy way to practice energy exchange, and they almost always give me way more than I give them. They're such a beauty. And I have to say this, that most people don't know this, but dogs are the easiest to transform to having a pet sitter. Cats are always like, what are you doing in my house? Even if they like you, they're still, they miss their people far more on the whole than dogs do.
Wow. You know, Jenny, when I listen to you talk about your work with people, with grieving, with clearing space, it sounds to me like you're so very guided. You know, you're so in touch with spirit. Because I don't know if you do have training with grief counseling or not, and it doesn't matter because it sounds like you are doing exactly what you're guided to do by spirit. How did you learn to trust yourself to follow that inner knowing?
Well, you see, this is the upside of not trying to protect yourself against somebody's emotion.
Mm-hmm.
And on some end, maybe I allow way too much emotion, to sort of stay in my body, and that's why we know you, Jade, right? However, it does transmute, right? It does transform into something else, and I think the real beauty about a lot of working with people as they're becoming something better, or I work with people who are maybe ending life, or they can be starting a new business, and they're becoming a new label as well. So there's something exciting about supporting somebody to jump that over that nothingness and landing into the next spot.
The midwifery work. Mm-hmm.
Yes, yeah. So there's a lot of it. Yeah, it's really good, and it's almost like we've been through something. I helped a chiropractor open up her new office, and I worked with her for like 2 months, and everything got done, and she's on the way and doing well, and it was just sort of like, whew, we got her through all the when something starts, things don't work. There's a lot of nuts that go that way and bolts that go that way, and you kind of look at each other and go, we've been through something, whatever else we've been through, it's been a real experience. Yeah.
Wow, how amazing. What a gift that is to have you midwife someone through a transition. So it's almost like you're a transition specialist or midwife. All kinds of transitions, because we do need somebody to have our back when we're going through something new and different. Just starting a private practice, for example, there's so many pieces, and coming to terms with a new identity, because that means you have a new social network. You are creating a new story about who you are. So you've got a new social network, and the people who were with you in your last job, some of them may need to leave you, and some will stay with you.
Yeah.
To have somebody who's there for you, who has your back, and who's just such a steady presence like you. What a gift. That is so awesome. My goodness. Wow.
Well, yeah, it's really interesting. I mean, that when you connect on a soul level, I mean, there's 3 little dogs that I sit for, and actually, when you did energy healing on me once, I was there, and you could feel their little energies, those little dogs. So they're like 2 little Eskimos and a miniature Aussie. But one of the Eskimos was they got him from a shelter, and he had been abused, and he would look at me because he would like snarl and bite at people's ankles, and and they were really afraid he would do that to me. Didn't do it to me. But he looked at me and I looked at him and I was like, I know your pain, Teddy. I see it. And he's like, geez, I know, you're so lovable. You know, like, do you look, you know, I looked in his eyes and he was like, and he was the one that was always trying to be next to me, because they also, animals also need to feel that they're seen, you know, that they, you know, they do so much. You know, we, especially here in America, we tend to have pets as sort of an appendage to our lifestyle. You know, I have a Great Dane because it fits who I think I am, not allowing the animal to be completely autonomous. And so, and animals want to please so much. You know, their love is very, you know, it's very deep. And cats, even the cats who scratch and bite, and they have a very deep, and sometimes that antagonistic energy is actually what you need. Sometimes you need that. I had a cat who, if I used to like cry for self-pity, he would come up and bite me. Like, all right, I'm going to be top kitty now. But one time when it was something was very true and very painful, and I was crying, he could tell the difference between real sorrow and just self-pity, and he was like, snap out of it when it was self-pity, and so warm, and yeah, just he a little soul kitty. But there, you know, most animals, if you allow them to be quiet, if you get them where there's not all like 5-year-olds on sugar, and you allow them to go to their rhythm, you will feel such a depth of real connection. And you, if you really open it up, I mean, I entertain a lot of my clients with stories about their animals, and I give them their voices, and they're like, God, that's just like my cat. I said, I know, that's what your cat says. And they're like, well, no, and no, yeah, that's what your cat is saying this. And they're like, well, you don't really hear it. I said, well, you know, not auditory, but I hear it. And so when I tell them what they did, and I do it in their voice and what they were thinking, and they're like, oh my God, that's my pet. It's like, yeah, if you would just listen, you could also really hear it. You know, they're so connected. They're amazing.
So animal communication just comes naturally to you because it's about energy, and it's also about you being spacious enough to be there for them, to see them and hear them and let them just be.
Well, it's like the Chinese mother and daughter being able, and you know, I had at that was a great place to work. I mean, I met a lot of people from Kobe, Japan, and we would have conversations every morning, and it wasn't in English only. It was in Japanese and English, but it's really being open to knowing what people are feeling. If you really allow yourself to open, and maybe this was because I mean, I was in places that spoke German, and they spoke Arabic, and they spoke French, and they spoke Italian, Spanish, and I would hear lots of conversations that weren't my own, but you could get the gist of it. And emotions, we all have the same emotions. We may express them differently. You know, we have different traditions and different ways of, like, you know, what we think is funny and how we laugh with friends is different in each culture, probably, and family to family. You know, it's, you know, how every family has its own little cultural, you know, bylaws. So
Yeah.
I like people, and I think, you know, I know I'm looking at the time, so it's like 10 to 8, But I think so. What else I do is the legal shield and identity theft, and that seems so out of it. But if you really think about it, is that I really like people. I've said it before. I really, and I think all people, there's an energy. We all feel the same love, but we don't all have the same access to equal justice under the law.
Mm.
And that's why I got to Legal Shield, because it is a very affordable way to be able to get justice by the law. And you can what is great about it is that you have any question, you just can call them and ask for advice. I need advice on whatever, and it could be anything from a neighbor's thing, a contract, something that you bought that they're not returning your money. Could be even bigger things. But what's also great about it is that they have an app for your phone. And if you are stopped by the police, you can put that app on and you can call an emergency. There's a big, huge emergency button. You press that and a lawyer will get on the phone with you, so that it actually has stopped. There was a car full of kids that got pulled over by the police. One of the kids had that app. He pressed it. He was the only one who wasn't taken to jail. And with the way what's going on here in this country, there's a big club that people can get good advice and have legal representation, and 99% of us are not in that club. And that's why I like Legal Shield. They for an individual, it's like $20 a month. That's it. You can call them on anything. There's a lot of, if you want to get a divorce from your husband and it's amicable, they will do it. That's included in the $20 a month. Your will, which is usually $1,000, that's included in the price. Yeah, there's so much. For a family, all the family for like $29, up to 8 people, everybody's covered. So that's, for me, because I was wondering what's the connection there? It seems so different, but it really is about, it's really about honoring each and every person. And there's a lot that's going on, as we know, as we watch people getting beaten up and people dying in jails, and companies coming in and taking over, that we don't, the 99% really doesn't have a chance against it. But with this company, they have a law firm that's being paid close to, here in Washington State, close to $500,000 a month. So we are their biggest client. So when you call them, we're client one. And it will help you in every state except Alaska. Alaska's almost up. And 4 provinces. So British Columbia, Alberta, Toronto, and Manitoba. So I just wanted to put that out there, because I think the need for affordable legal representation, and especially the way everything is so litigious in this country, that everyone's at a disadvantage who can't afford to pay.
I'm losing your sound.
Yeah, okay, sorry. Everyone is at a disadvantage, and I just really care about all of our experience, because if something happens and you're arrested, or you lose something because people had lawyers and you couldn't afford it, it's just so that's important to me. So I just wanted to say why I I am with Legal Shield, and especially just, you know, we deal with contracts in our businesses, and they do things like that too. So they have a business thing and a personal. So, all right. So that's
Oh,
the end.
thank you. Thank you so much for sharing that about Legal Shield, because I just saw something on Facebook today, somebody posting this legal notice about how they do not want Facebook to have access to their profile. I don't know if that's true or not, but it makes me think about my own privacy very differently, because I use social media, and to think that what I put as private is not private anymore, that kind of freaked me out just for a moment, and I wasn't sure if that is true or another thing, false thing that's going around. So it's good to have Legal Shield, because I have a website as well, and I realize, you know, sometimes it's not about words, like what you were saying about language, that anything can be miscommunicated. So it's good to have that, not because, you know, we intentionally miscommunicate, but because different things, different words mean different things to different people. We all hear things differently. So yeah, thank you for bringing that up, because I feel like the world is getting more confusing. You know?
Well, and with that one's actually a good one for, they have what they call ID Shield, which is identity. And it's usually people think it's just theft, so of a credit card, but actually it's your whole identity, and they monitor your web, your emails, your addresses, your social security, your passports. And with that, they will restore it. So yeah, I had a friend of mine, her kids went to O'Day High School. I don't know if I could say that. I guess I'll just say this. They went to a high school, and somebody hacked in and got everybody's information. And she ended up, they they um, they filed taxes under her social security number. She didn't know until she filed hers, right? So that can really mess you up for your social security at the end of your, you know, your retirement. They can hijack it and take it. But medical records, they can hide. People are taking medical IDs, having operations. They're stealing that. And the real problem, you worked in a hospital, is that they can change your blood, you know, they can change your health history. So for example, if you're an O negative and they're an AB positive, they'll go to the doctor and change it. Oh no, I'm an AB positive. So you're in an accident and they see on your medical records that you're an AB positive, they give you blood for that. I mean, it's so scary. Yeah, there's just a lot, and I just think this world, we've got so much stimuli, and there's so much stress, right? You see that in your work, that what can't, we can only protect ourselves so much without being
I'm
paranoid.
kind of losing your voice.
I said, yeah, we can only protect ourselves so much without being paranoid. But this is actually a really proactive, and because we are now so connected, especially the younger people. You know, I mean, they've been on social media since they were like 10, and their whole lives are somewhere in there, and to protect it is pretty difficult. So that's, I think it's only going to be needed more. There's some quote, in 1 year 35 million people went to the hospital, but in the same year it was like 95 million legal cases, and almost all of them were due to contractual problems.
Wow.
So
Wow, what an interesting conversation we had today, Jenny. Well, it's the end of the hour. I'm going to wrap this up, but I so appreciate all that you share, especially about, how you learn about letting go of someone. That's powerful. And I'm so
Yeah.
happy to hear that your brother is doing well.
Isn't
What
that
an awesome, awesome story. I mean, this would give anyone hope that he had throat cancer and head cancer, and he also had pain. Yeah.
and he had it in his lymph system. It had traveled to, so they were just wait, if it had gone to his lungs, he wouldn't have done anything. He would have just, but they said, no, it's not in your lung. Let's try something. And he's fine.
Wow. That is just so awesome. Thank you so much for all your sharing and all your stories. And so, do you have a website or email that you want to give to our?
Well, I do. I'm on LinkedIn as Jennifer, and it's Simons. It's only one M, so. But I do have my email is because I've been in the process of transformation. My website is still under construction. So my email is Jenny Simons, Jenny Simons, SIMONS, and I can put it in the Facebook page at live.com. And then people can contact me. And I'm on LinkedIn as well.
Great. Thank you so much. Well, everybody, I think this just about wraps up our hour. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Jade.
Oh, you're very